Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Cabinet meeting. I don't believe we have any apologies for absence. We all look here. And any declarations of interest? No. The first item on the agenda is just to note, Cabinet, that we have once again feedback from the Performance and Overview Scrutiny Committee on to the Cabinet meeting held on the 21st of January, which was, as you'll know, Councillor Wright, largely to do with education. And we welcome that feedback. Once again, thank you to the Chair. We could now move to item 4. That's you, Councillor Callard.
Thank you, Leader.
25-26 revenue budget financial update.
Thanks. This report provides Cabinet with a third financial update on the Council's revenue and capital budgets for the 2025-2026 financial year. It sets out the latest forecast position, explains the key movements since the previous update, and highlights the financial pressures, risks and structural issues that will shape both the year-end outturn and the Council's financial position as it moves into the 2026-2027 financial year. At this stage, the forecast revenue position is an underspend of £1.146 million, which is equivalent to about 0.5% of the approved budget. This represents a significant improvement compared to earlier forecasts and reflects a combination of factors, including the effective use of external grant funding within social care, favourable movements in debt financing arising from a high cash balances and capital slippage, and a stronger than anticipated performance in a number of income generating services. However, this improved headline position is unevenly distributed across services, and it sits alongside continued volatility and cost pressure in a number of demand-led areas, most notably social care, housing and homelessness, additional learning needs and education. The report highlights that, subject to the outturn position being realised, £850,000 of the forecast underspend will be required to be transferred to reserves in order to maintain the Council's general balances at or above 5% of the Council's proposed net revenue budget for 2026-2027. This reinforces the constrained nature of the Council's financial flexibility, with limited scope for in-year underspends to be redeployed, and underlines the importance of protecting financial resilience in the face of ongoing and emerging risks. Detailed service commentary within the report illustrates the contrasting financial positions across directorates. While adult social care shows a markedly improved forecast, driven in part by in-year grant allocations and operational efficiencies, underlying demand pressures continue to grow, particularly in relation to residential care and complex need. At the same time, children's services, housing and homelessness and ALN provision continue to experience significant financial pressure, reflecting both rising demand and high unit costs associated with statutory provision. The report also sets out progress against the £10.7 million worth of savings built into the 2025-2026 budget, with over 93% currently forecast to be delivered. While this represents an improvement on recent years, the remaining shortfall highlights the increasing difficulty on delivering savings at a scale in a challenging operating environment. Alongside this, the projected increase in the cumulative schools reserves deficit to £7.5 million represents a growing call on the Council's balance sheet and a material risk to our financial resilience. In addition, the update reflects the continuing impact of external factors beyond the Council's direct control, including higher than assumed inflation, pressures on debt recovery and income collection, shortfalls in funding for increased employers' national insurance contributions, and the financial consequences of Storm Claudia across both revenue and capital budgets. While some of these pressures have been mitigated through in-year funding and favourable financing movements, others are likely to persist and will need to be managed as part of the Council's medium-term financial planning. Overall, this update presents a financial position that has improved in headline terms, but remains underpinned by significant structural and demand-led pressures. The issues set out in this report are central to understanding the Council's capacity to maintain reserves at a prudent level, manage risk within a highly constrained funding environment, and sustain services in the context of increasing demand and ongoing financial uncertainty. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callard. Cabinet, do you have any questions? I'll bring in Councillor John. Welcome, Councillor John. You have 3 questions. Councillor John?
Looks like the screen might be frozen.
I thought it was just serious. Councillor Callard, while we're waiting for Councillor John to come in, perhaps you could answer the first of his questions, which can you explain how the budget to support for pupils with additional learning needs has an overspend of 427,000, and how the authority to managing is this significant? Councillor John?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, Councillor John, could I hear you then?
Doesn't appear to. So he's asking you how we are managing the significant increase in demand. And if you can hear us, Councillor John, I hope you soon will be back with us fully.
The overspend in the additional learning needs directorate at update 3 is due to an increase in the costs associated with a small group of learners who present with very complex needs. The increase is a result of the number of pupils being temporarily supported by bespoke packages from external agencies, which can be very costly. In order to manage this pressure in a more sustainable way in the long term, we're currently reviewing how best that we can support learners with social, emotional, and mental health needs within Monmouthshire in future.
Thank you, Councillor Callard. Standing in for Councillor John once again. Question 2. According to the budget revisions, the Welsh Government has withdrawn funding for our new Welsh medium school in Monmouth. You'll recall that last year, Welsh Government reneged on a previous commitment to fully fund the future expansion of the school, when necessary, leading the administration to consider an alternative home for the school. What is the new restructuring scheme that is being developed for Welsh medium education in Monmouthshire, and what will it mean for pupils? Councillor John, are you back? No. Did you get that, Councillor Callard?
I did, thank you, Leader. The question is correct in that the funding for the current phase has been withdrawn, but I'd suggest it's not a reneging. It simply became apparent that the costs associated with the project were significantly greater than the funding allocated. This was due to costs associated with the preparatory works only being fully understood after some groundworks had taken place. The school is currently on the site of Overmono School and has sufficient capacity for the foreseeable future based on current projections. And the Welsh Government have confirmed that we can submit a bid for funding going forward, and if approved, it would be 100% funded.
That is good news. Thank you, Councillor Callard. And once more, Councillor John's 3rd question. He notes that Monmouthshire has received a grant of 16,000 from the Welsh Government for the inspection, surveying, maintenance and remediation of coal tips. Given that we have a number of coal tips classified as the highest risk categories C and D, can you confirm how this money will be spent? Because clearly you can't remediate any of these tips for 16,000.
Thank you for the question. Again, Councillor John. It's a really interesting topic actually, and it's something that's, you know, Monmouthshire is not often associated with coal tips, but we do have a number of coal tips, you know, especially in some areas where we have industrial heritage. You'll know that following the Tylerstown slip in Rhondda-Cynon-Taf in 2020, Welsh Government ordered a review of all the coal tips in Wales and developed a national register with risk ratings for each tip. There are 27 coal tips recorded in Monmouthshire, which include 2 category D tips and 10 category C tips. which are regularly inspected by the Mining Remediation Authority, which was previously known as the Coal Authority. The Mining Remediation Authority will liaise with landowners should any urgent works be required to tips under their ownership. Monmouthshire County Council does not own any tips, but Monmouthshire County Council does own assets relating to tips, such as a large retaining wall and a culvert in the Geshley Felin area, which lie adjacent to or under a tip, and that's in the Glydic area of Monmouthshire. The £16,000 grant, which we were awarded in 2025-2026 financial year, is being used to undertake surveys within a Monmouthshire County Council owned 60-metre long culvert, which partially lies below that tip. The survey is required to inform maintenance works planned during 2026 and 2027. The grant will also cover staff costs associated with attending regional technical working groups and other coal tip management related works. Monmouthshire County Council has also been successful in applying for further funding over the next 3 financial years, totalling £388,000 through Welsh Government's Coal Tip Safety Grant. This funding will be used to undertake essential maintenance works on MCC-owned assets, including the aforementioned retaining wall and culvert.
Thank you, Councillor Callard. You're back, Councillor John. That's good. In your absence, Councillor John, I asked your questions, so they will be on record.
I saw. Thank you. I haven't had an interruption in the video or sound, but I understand that you have. So apologies for that.
Yes, we did. We just couldn't rise you. Couldn't get you to answer your questions, but they are on record and have been answered.
I heard the answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if I could bring you to the recommendations, Cabinet, there are 8, of which 7 are to note. Recommendation 3.7 is asking us to approve the capital budget revisions outlined in Appendix 5 that have resulted from the receipt of new or variation existing grants and external contributions that weren't included in the original capital budget approved at the start of the year. And under our financial procedures, any changes to the capital budget must be approved. So do we approve, Cabinet? We do. That brings us on to the next item, Monmouthshire's Cultural Strategy 2026 to 2036, which has been eagerly awaited. Over to you, Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Leader. I think we can all recognise the importance and the breadth of culture in Monmouthshire. And when we're talking about culture, that spans the full breadth of things that people do for fun, the events that bring people together, the hobbies and pastimes where people of all ages can relax, find their passion, get out in our stunning landscape or meet like-minded souls, the things that inspire and uplift and entertain us. And our cultural assets include the arts venues, churches and museums, but also our community halls, parks, pubs, rights of way, streets and town centres. And cultural industries of all kinds are an important sector of the local economy, whether that's film and TV, music or festivals and events. And there are many people who live in Monmouthshire and actually are outstanding in their field and outstanding in their area of work working around the world. We identified the need for a strategy in the community and corporate plan, not because Monmouthshire lacks cultural activity, but to see where we as a council can maximise our positive impact and to ensure that nobody gets left out, that the opportunity to take part in cultural activity is there for everybody. And as in many creative endeavours, the process of development has been as important as the outcome. We have a strategy document and action plan which has emerged through more than 2 years of conversations with cultural and creative professionals, with local and national organisations and with the public. And we asked the question, what makes Monmouthshire Monmouthshire? And we got a variety of answers reflecting the diverse histories of our towns and villages. And the process has been a true co-creation and has already had a lot of beneficial results new collaborations, the first arts festival in Caldecott last year, and a stronger network of organisations in Monmouthshire sharing resources and expertise. So practical results such as the theatre costume library available to all performance groups in the county. So this is also a whole authority strategy, recognising the many roles that the council takes as provider of services, as landlord, as funder, and as guardian of the public realm. Recognising the strong role which our towns and town councils play in supporting culture, this strategy sits alongside the placemaking plans for each town. It also interacts with the destination management plan, recognising that cultural activity is a reason to visit Monmouthshire, and with our wellbeing and prevention strategies. It builds on the previous work to develop a heritage strategy and action plan, which focuses on caring and presenting the sites and collections in MCC ownership for all to enjoy. So I'd like to thank everybody who's taken part in the workshops during the process and in the public engagement on the draft strategy. I'd particularly like to thank the councillors who contributed during development, and also the members of Place Scrutiny who suggested final amendments. One of the decisions taken early on was that the development of this strategy should not be outsourced to consultants, but should be led by council staff from our Mon Life events, heritage and arts teams, in particular Tracy Thomas and Rachel Rogers. I think given the breadth of their day-to-day responsibilities, the strategy is no small achievement. I'd like to pay tribute to their hard work and enthusiasm in steering this through. So the strategy sets out an early action plan for the next 2 years, the most important part of which is to establish a cultural partnership forum to oversee delivery and set future priorities. Cultural professionals and organisations in Monmouthshire asked for more shared resources, to share opportunities to share information and supporting collaboration. We're working with the Centre for Creative Economy at Cardiff University to understand the current local impacts in more depth and establish benchmarks and key outcomes, including economic, environmental and social benefits, alongside developing initiatives that will see an increase in employment and wellbeing through engagement with the cultural sector. And this will give us a baseline against which to measure the impact and success of the strategy. So I hope Cabinet can agree that this is a document worth waiting for and give approval to move into the delivery phase with the establishment of the Cultural Partnership Forum.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. I think one of the truly impressive things about this strategy is it was a grassroots, developed with creatives across our county in conjunction with people who are users, benefiters and part of that joyous audience across the county. And I think that bodes well for it to be able to be delivered, because we're not the deliverer, are we?
No.
We are the supporter of what is so magical about our county, all across, in towns, in villages, festivals, art groups, clubs, theatre, music. It's endless. And so thank you to everyone in council and across the county that have got us to this point. Does anybody want to remark or add a comment from council, from Cabinet? In which case I'll bring us to the one and only recommendation that we approve the Cultural Strategy and Action Plan and agree its adoption. Are we agreed? Thank you, everyone. That brings us on to item 6, development of a supported accommodation provision. That's over to you, Councillor Callard. Councillor Chandler. Apologies.
No worries. Yeah, thank you, Leader. So, colleagues, pardon me. You remember that in April 2024, so almost 2 years ago, I brought to full council a report setting out a new strategy for how the council will provide residential placements and supported accommodation for our children looked after and for those leaving care. It said that instead of contracting those placements out to commercial providers, that we would develop our own in-house provision through either repurposing existing council properties or purchasing new properties for conversion. Scrutiny committee that it went through and full council recognised that our proposals made good business sense, because commercial providers, to be frank, they had us over a barrel. With no real competition, they were able to charge us what they liked, in effect. I mean, not quite, but it was eye-watering sums of money. And moving that residential care in-house saves us substantial amounts of money, even taking into account any purchase costs, but recognising, of course, that almost all of those costs have been covered by Welsh Government grant. There's been no cost to the council purse. But the most important reason, though, that for the change is not financial. It's that when we purchased these commercial placements, we had little control over where the children ended up. Often they were placed out of county, sometimes even out of Wales, which meant that the children who'd already gone through the trauma of being taken into care were further traumatised by being separated from their wider family, their friends, the people and places that they were familiar with. And it also presented us with more challenges in providing them with the support, ongoing support they needed while they're in care. When our social care teams had to travel longer distances to meet them and to supervise the arrangements, and in terms of trying to bring them back in to rebuild their relationships with family and to rebuild their life chances, all of those became more challenging. So this change that we made from a contracted out, profit-orientated model of children's care to a not-for-profit council-run service, to be honest, is one of the initiatives that I'm most proud of in this administration. We now have 4 children's homes that are either open or due to open in the coming months, and they will house 12 children in our care. And in addition, we have 1 home in Caldicot that provides supported accommodation for young people aged 16 plus, and another one in Abergavenny that is being developed as we speak. And the proposal in front of you today is to purchase a property in Monmouth so that we have a 3rd house for supported accommodation. That will give us a total of 13 places for those young people who are transitioning from care to independent living. When that strategy for the development of residential placements was agreed by council 2 years ago, we pledged that a business case for any further property purchases would be brought to Cabinet for approval, which is what we have before us today, so that we can be assured of the continuing value for money of the proposals. I would say that finding suitable properties of the size, type and location needed for our children looked after is not simple. So when we do find a suitable property, we want to act swiftly, but with all due diligence. Our proposal here is to purchase a particular property in Monmouth that can be used to provide supported accommodation for 3 care-experienced young people. The purchase and any redevelopment costs will be funded through a grant from the Housing with Care Fund. And we further propose to commission a not-for-profit agency to provide the housing-based support for the residents, as we have done with the similar property that is running successfully in Caldicot. So with the grant, and based on a conservative 80% occupancy rate, this new accommodation will achieve savings of over £142,000 per annum. In the very unlikely event that the grant is not delivered, we have factored in an alternative funding scenario to include the necessary borrowing costs that might ensue from that. But even with that, we would still be achieving savings of over £76,000 per annum. But as I've said before, our motivation is not financial. So even though this presents good business sense, we want to improve. Ultimately, what it is about is we want to improve the care and support that the children and young people in our care receive. And in this case, this house will provide a homely setting for 3 care-experienced young people, where 24-hour support will be available to assist the young people to develop their independent living skills. During their stay in the provision, the goal is to equip those young people to progress onwards, either to accommodation that has a lower intensity of support need, or even into independent accommodation. And in this sense, the provision forms the first step in a young person's pathway to independence. I would say, as corporate parents, this is one of our most important responsibilities, and I look forward to your support, Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callard.
Chandler.
Chandler. Sorry, forgive me. I think you're right to say it's a legacy of which this council can be proud. Are there any councillor Sandals? I was going to call you something different then.
Oh, go on. I feel left out. Thank you, Lita, and thank you, Councillor Chandler, for bringing this excellent proposal forward. As somebody who sits alongside you and other elected members on corporate parenting, this question of housing is something we all know that the young people who attend our meetings bring up regularly, and I'm so proud that that this administration has brought this accommodation in for all these young people. We know how difficult it is when they lose their local connections and they move out to other authorities, and even into England quite often, and the cost to us is obviously just a side thing. The fact that they will be in the county where they belong, where they'll still have their local connections, is just so important, and I'm really, really proud. And I'm sure at our next corporate parenting meeting, when this is brought up, it's another step forward to keep everybody within the county that they deserve to live. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sandals.
Well said. There's no other questions or observations. We have 4 recommendations which Councillor Chandler has clearly laid out for us. So are we agreed to move forward and refurbish this property? We're agreed. This brings us on to the final item on the agenda, item 7, placemaking delivery. That's you, Councillor Griffiths.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just to provide the context, each year since 2022, Welsh Government has been providing Monmouthshire County Council with around £700,000 to fund projects which broadly enhance the social, cultural, business vibrancy of our towns. The 26-27, which is the subject of this report, that Welsh Government funding is supplemented by an additional 1.5 million from the UK Government's Pride in Place Fund. This report reflects the approach that we've taken, which has been to combine those 2 funds into a single process. The allocations which are recommended from that process for each of our town centres reflect a way of doing business by MCC that I intend should be embedded in our county council. It would have been possible for this cabinet or for our officers at corporate level in the county council to decide what is best for our towns and then tell our towns to enjoy our reflections and our decisions. We haven't done that. In each town, we have been developing placemaking plans, allowing the towns themselves to set out their vision. Town councillors, county councillors, local groups, all working together. On the basis of those placemaking plans, over the last 3 months probably, we have been challenging those town-based placemaking groups to determine their priorities, not ours, to determine their priorities for the coming year. That's, I believe, a good way of doing business. It's a challenging way of doing business. And I commend the way in which those groups in each of our towns have risen to that challenge. It is so much easier, we all know it, to actually scrutinize or to play down the decisions of others. But when you're asked to make the decision yourself, it's a genuine challenge. And the towns, as I say, have risen to that. And therefore the recommendations in this report are not my recommendations. They don't come from discussions within this building, the County Hall. They come from the discussions within the towns themselves. And it is on that basis, and you can see the list, I think, that the towns have shown imagination, it's reflected their vision, it's reflected their understanding of their towns. You can see how Abergavenny is focusing on a changing placing facility within the town of Abergavenny. Caldicot has prioritised the public realm of the town centre. It's prioritised a skate park alongside the leisure centre and improvements to the CAB building in that town. In Chepstow, support is being offered to a development of a former factory shop, a very large building which could well have blighted the town. It will be developed by private finance and the financing of a registered social landlord. That will be complemented by support from this fund. Placemaking in Chepstow, the Chepstow Group have prioritised developments in Thornwell, community garden, stroke allotments, and the shop fronts in Bulwark. Andy and Mega have prioritised their distinctive village centre, or town centre as I now must call it, and noting how that town centre needs to be far more effectively waymarked alongside the B road, from the B road to that town centre. Monmouth is prioritising the bus station and various properties, important properties again, within Monmouth town. Usk is prioritising, again, a changing places scheme in the town centre car park in Usk itself. Our eagerness to work with the private sector reflects the fact that we will be, both on the town allocations and by a reserved central allocation, be holding back 235,000 to work with owners of buildings which can be brought to market to the benefit of all. Those are the recommendations of our placemaking groups. I'll commend them to Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Griffith. I think this is really exciting. It's great to see that this process is being used, and it's really, really wonderful to see the diversity of the choices that have been made. And it just underlines, doesn't it, how our towns are so distinctive and so different. Do we have any questions or observations, Cabinet? If not,
I'm just going to say, only just a comment, Councillor. I'm really happy with this development of the changing places toilet in Abergavenny. Town Council and others have worked so hard on improving the accessibility of Abergavenny Town Centre in a range of ways, and I think this just really complements several years of hard work, and I'm delighted to see it coming to fruition.
Thanks very much.
Indeed, I attended Usk Town Council, and a similar sentiment was expressed there by the Town Council, who Councillor Keir, who's sitting in Cabinet with us, brought the good news to the Town Council at that point. Councillor John, you have a question, and luckily you can ask it yourself now.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Thank you for the report. My group welcomes the investment, including the skate park in Caldicot, but there's an ongoing source of frustration in the town, which is the state of the leisure centre, which we haven't seen any progress. It continues to look quite tired, dated. It really is in need of investment to bring it up to the standard of newly refurbished sites like Monmouth. So when can we expect the administration to bring forward plans to fully refurbish Caldicot Leisure Centre, please?
Thanks very much, and thanks very much, Councillor John. I note that your group is supporting the priority set by the townspeople of Caldicot to invest in a skate park. I suggest it might have been perverse if the group had not supported that. It is the decision of that group in Caldicot that I described. Moving on to the leisure centre, in 2022, when I took on this role, what I inherited was not an investment plan for the Caldicot Leisure Centre, but a levelling up bid, a somewhat disparate and disconnected levelling up bid, which did not get the support of UK government at the time. And it is been an effort since that time to pick up the pieces and consider an alternative way forward. The skateboard park itself, alongside the leisure centre, will attract people to that location and to the leisure centre itself. It should be seen as part of what has to be now a more incremental approach to that leisure facility. Our leisure team have developed an investment plan for the internal provision of the leisure centre in Caldicot. The focus is on £600,000 to be invested in the gymnasium equipment in that facility. That reflects the experience with Monmouthshire and elsewhere, that if you can get the best gymnasium equipment, then that will attract users of the leisure park and will actually provide a commercial return to that investment. Those plans have been developed and funding is being sought and will be gained from a range of sources to implement that. But it needs to be part of a bigger picture. And it is only in the last few weeks that, again, the placemaking group in Caldicot has determined and chosen a consultant to work with the placemaking group in Caldicot to establish a revised vision for that town. All the discussions that I've had in Caldicot and with that group indicate to me that a significant part of that discussion in Caldicot, working with that consultant, working with the community, will include the role of leisure facilities as a core part of the future of Caldicot as a destination for local people and for people along the Severn Estuary. If that comes out in the placemaking process, then I think that we will have a plan which will allow us to look further for investment into the town in general, and if that is what is prioritised, into leisure facilities within the town. I think we should all allow that process to take place, for all the community involvement, engagement, ideas to be collected, and let's see what emerges from that as a prospectus, as I say, for leisure facilities in Caldicot.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Thank you, Councillor John. We have one recommendation. Well, it's not even a recommendation, it's an order. In this case. Not our decision here, Cabinet. we vow to the decisions that have been made by our towns. And do we agree with the schedule and the way it's going to be rolled out? Thank you very much, everyone. And that concludes business for tonight. Thanks, Nick. Thank you online.
Paul, can I just, I'm not going to be concerned, but